All right, this is Trey here, founder, CEO of VendettaSportsMedia.com. I have Chris Bagdonas with me here today. There's been a bunch of NHL trades, so I figure we'll go over them, and I'll be doing the written part, so you'll be seeing a bunch of these videos in some of the articles. Bagdonas, what's going on? We have a bunch of names to go over, so let's get right into the first one.
Let's do it, and obviously we'll start with the big one.
Yeah, Mikko Rantanen to Carolina. This one happened maybe a week or two or so. I still can't believe this happened. I'm curious to see what you think about this, but I guess my first takeaway is I have so many takeaways. Why did you do this now? I mean, the trade deadline is not until way after the Four Nations. Like, why wouldn't you take this all the way up into the deadline? I think that's a crucial part of this, because who's to say Carolina can't say, well, we tried to get an extension done, we'll flip them. Like, who's to say Carolina can't then flip them? So what happens if Carolina end up flipping them and they gets more for Rantanen? Because that's a real possibility. Why wouldn't you take this up into the deadline? And then B, I guess my second takeaway would be, how did you make the trade before the cap projections came out? Like, we all knew we were waiting for those to come out. The NHL posted a 3-year window for the 2025-26 season, the following year, and then the following year. All those cap projections were going to come out. You made this trade days before that. So you didn't even know if what Rantanen was asking for was reasonable or not. Those are the two things. You can't defend that part of this trade.
And to your point, Trey, now that these numbers are out, I think what his asking price is absolutely more than reasonable.
More than reasonable.
Kind of player he is, 50 goals, 50 assists, it's pretty much in his sleep on the power play.
He's a 100-point guy.
He's a stud.
And by the way, we're also talking about a guy like shows up in the playoffs, scored a bunch of big goals during their Stanley Cup run. Like, this isn't a guy where we're unsure about if he can perform in the postseason. We've seen him do it in the postseason. He's a big body. He scores goals in his sleep. I just don't understand. If you're going to trade him, why would you do it now? And why would you do it before the cap projections came out? Like, when you do all those things, that's an ego play. Like, your ego got in the way if you want to do that.
It's really nonsensical. And especially, I saw your post as well, Trey, about, Chris McFarland's explanation for it. It really doesn't hold any weight.
It doesn't make any sense.
I can pull that up too, because it's just ridiculous.
Sure. I mean, why not? It doesn't make any sense. And that's not even to mention the fact that, we can't pay him more than McKinnon. Well, you paid him more than McKinnon 4 years ago before McKinnon's extension, right? You paid him more than McKinnon before McKinnon signed his new deal. So why can't you do it again? And by the way, like, the cap's going way up. We had a stagnant cap for like 4 years in a row where it just wasn't moving. If you want to say, well, we can't pay him more than Rantanen, if the cap wasn't moving, fine. But this cap's going over $100 million, like, quickly.
Within 2 years.
That McKinnon deal is no longer valid. And by the way, like, he's asking for Draisaitl money. Okay.
He's a similar player to Draisaitl.
Okay. By the way, you can make an argument he should get more now because Draisaitl signed before the cap projections came out.
Yep. It's a really silly deal.
Here's another thing that really bothers me about this explanation. Are you going to tell Cale Makar this? Are you going to tell Cale Makar that he has the right to test free agency? Because if the answer is no, this answer is bullshit.
It's really bad. And
here's the other thing. When Makar's deal comes up, are you going to tell him you can't make more than McKinnon?
That's the precedent.
Because somebody will give him $20 million on the open market a year. I would.
Yeah.
He's the best defenseman I've ever seen.
Yep. He's a right-handed Bobby Orr, pretty much.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. How can you possibly say he has the right to test free agency? You set a bad example for your entire organization when you do things like this. Because when Cale Makar's deal's up, why would he take any discount? Like, what would be the purpose of taking any discount? You've already shown your hand. Hey, we have an internal cap. You can't make more than X or we'll trade you. Fine. Fine. Like, like we're talking about $8 million, if not more, per year that Makar is going to be able to sign for. I just don't get it. I just really don't get it. And don't tell me, oh, well, we can't afford all three. Bullshit.
Nope.
You gave Mackenzie Blackwood an extension. You got how much money you paying to Chushkin? You gave Middlestat an extension right away after you traded for him.
Taves is on a big extension.
Taves on a big extension. You got Sam Girard on decent amount of money. You're paying Landeskog money. I mean, don't sit here and tell me you couldn't afford them. That's bullshit.
And it's a really good deal for Carolina in more ways than one. Like you said, they could flip them. They could get more than what they gave up.
Who's to say they can't flip them?
Yeah, it's certainly on the table depending on.
You didn't even get a first round pick back. Pittsburgh just got one for Marcus Pettersson, and you couldn't get a first round pick back.
It's fairy tales in my eyes. And then the other thing is obviously for Carolina, they got rid of their Martin Necas problem. He was going to command a big deal.
They tried to trade him 6 times. They had a deal lined up with Buffalo. He wouldn't sign there. They had a deal lined up with Columbus. He wouldn't sign there. They've been trying to trade Necas, and they turned him into one of the 10 best players in the league.
Unbelievable. Again, when you let these smart guys run organizations, then trades like this, I think, will continue to happen.
Speaking of smart guys, Kyle Davidson is not one of them. What the fuck was that?
Oh my God.
I mean, does anyone have any defense for the Blackhawks in this trade? They get their own 3rd round pick back, which they got robbed for on draft night. Keep in mind.
Yeah. It's
like they couldn't have gotten a 3rd just for Taylor Hall. But they ate Rantanen? Like nothing that Kyle Davidson has done has made any fucking sense, but I just wanted to throw that there in the end.
Yeah, I think he's trying to save face by saying, "Oh, we'll make a run at Rantanen in the summer." Like he's not going to touch, even with Bedard, he's not going to touch Chicago. Not at his age, not at what
they're
he wants
terrible.
To accomplish.
They're awful. Terrible. One player is not fixing the Blackhawks.
Nope. Pretty ridiculous.
I guess I'll say this to close out the Rantanen section. I think the Canes are the favorites in the East. I would pick them as the Stanley Cup favorites. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll happen, but for years we've been talking about how Carolina's a good team. They have awesome players, but they don't have that one true game-breaking superstar, and now they do.
Yep.
And by the way, they acquired that guy who apparently is really good friends with Sebastian Aho. They're both Finnish. They're both, I guess they were roommates once upon a time in Finland. They're going to be in the 4 Nations together. They have like 6 weeks to see if this really, really works, which I don't know why you would give Carolina that favor. But beyond that, the last thing I want to say on this section is Jackson Blake. He's been skating 5-on-5 on that line with Aho and Rantanen. If you're looking for a sleeper in fantasy hockey, the rookie he's from one of the Dakotas, I think. He was
yes.
I assume he only got picked in the 4th round because he's got pimples all over his face and it doesn't look like he's actually good. But if you actually watch him, they actually have something with this young kid. So he's been the one skating up on the top line on 5-on-5. Just quick little bullet point there too.
He can play. I could not agree more. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Colorado can rebound from this. Because I said in the Slack that I thought they're not done yet. I thought they have another big swing, but I don't know. I don't really know where they can go from here. And obviously, you're not making up the value that Rantanen brings. Even with Necas, who's a good player, he's not anywhere near the level.
By the way, Necas, good player, good skill, good speed. I mean, he's talented. Don't get me wrong. I just don't understand how you do this. Like, you didn't get 1 first round pick? Jack Drury was the sweetener that pushed this thing over the top.
It's crazy.
And this goes to show why this trade was so bad. You cannot overpay for great. You can overpay for good. You cannot overpay for great. And a perfect example of this is Nazem Kadri, where he's not a great player, but he's a great pain in the ass, and you still haven't replaced it. You've tried Middlestat. You've tried 600 fucking centers.
Yeah.
Now you're trying Jury. You've tried 600 fucking centers to replace Kadri, and you still haven't done it. This is the same thing that's going to happen with Rantanen. You're going to try 6 different fucking wingers, and none of them are going to be as good. The craziest part about it is you made this trade knowing your team is worse in the here and now. You're no longer a Stanley Cup contender, in my opinion.
Nope.
Especially in the Western Conference. Like, you are already but before the trade, you were the 7th seed in the West. Which maybe you'll still be the 7th seed. Because I'm sure the Kraken and shit teams like that aren't passing you. Fine.
Nope.
Vancouver's in the toilet. Fine. Those teams probably aren't passing you. But you're not one of the big dogs anymore in the West.
No.
I mean, every single team in the Western Conference threw a fucking parade.
Oh, yeah. That was the beginning of the end for Colorado.